Eventually, people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally, it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
Welcome, hello and welcome to my new humble abode. Thank you all for being here. It's been a while. It's been too long. How have we all coped without a show? Me personally, not well. Feels like part of my life is missing. But here we are. We're back and we are ready to go. Now, I'm pretty happy with how things turned out. Like I said, we tried to make sure we brought the vibe from back in Australia to Bali. And, you know, I think it's coming along pretty damn good. I'm quite happy with it. Now, this setup here is interesting to say the least. Okay. I'm going to give you guys a bit of a run through of this on my other channel. I'm a little bit behind on that one at the moment, but I've got a video coming out probably in the next couple of days. And then in the next video, I'm going to show you with what we're working with here. And look, compact to say the least, but it works. And I'm pretty happy with it so far. So it's looking good. Now, today, like I said, we're doing this moon landing debate. This is one of my favorite topics, by the way. The moon landing, it's like the OG conspiracy theory. And I just think it's so interesting because if it's fake, it's like the greatest psyop of all time, potentially. And there is a lot of points that we're going to look at today that say that it might be fake. I left the beanie. No, I got the beanie here. We've got the hat here. But I'm not wearing it right now. But I will. Don't worry. We haven't ditched the hat. I'm just not wearing it right now. That's all. Probably because I'm quite burnt. Okay, I made sure I got a good layer of burn in quickly because for the last year, the only tan I was getting was from about 40 inches of monitor screen. Now I'm actually getting sunlight, and I'm just trying to keep the keep off the sunburn for now. But don't worry, we got the hat selection back there. You look better without the beanie. Thank you. But you know, I do. The hat is actually part of the outfit. You know what I mean? It's the stage costume. Don't worry, we've got the hat selection here. Now, we're going to get into this show. For anyone who's watching the stream afterwards, don't worry. We will have chapter markers for when the show begins and what we get into. But we will just hang out for a little bit because what's it been? What is it? The 2nd of December. It's actually nearly been a week. That's the longest I've not uploaded in a year. Love the haircut. So this is actually the haircut I always have. Like, this is not different for me. Obviously, I got a haircut more recently, but this is what my hair always looks like. I guess with this camera angle, though, you can probably see it a little bit better. Got an absolute party in the back. You know what I mean? Always. That's what it's always been. It's just been hiding under a hat. Getting fake sunlight. Yeah. Yeah. We've been getting tanned by the monitor, the computer monitor, but now we're getting actual sun. And boy, does this sun burn quickly, very quickly, very strong. But it's good. I needed it. Things have been good so far. And this is obviously a bit of a test run. Okay. I wasn't sure how this would go because we're on Bali internet, but so far everything looks like it's working really well. So I think that's a great sign. Daniel Taylor, you absolute legend. You have gifted the first Balinese membership, sir. Thank you very, very much. Bringing the mullet back, Rob, mate. It should have never have gone away, in my opinion. It should have never have left. But absolutely, we're bringing it back with a force. Why would a NASA astronaut lie about not going to the moon? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that, Bright Broad. That's what this whole show is going to be about. Now, let's just check what this screen looks like over here. Yep, things are working okay over here too. By the way, this is a new microphone. I don't know if it's sounding any different for you guys, but hopefully it sounds all good. Again, this is there's a whole bunch of things going on in this stream for the first time. So if there's any mishaps, bear with me. We'll fix it as always. But I think it sounds good. I think it looks good. Everything's kind of working well so far. So I'm quite happy with that. So I actually did a video on this, on Bart Sibrel specifically, about probably about 9 or 10 months. I think it was in April, actually. In April. And Bart Sibrel is the guy who debated a NASA astronaut who is the whole focus of the show today. Now, I've got my original video linked below, which after this, if you want to go and check it out, I would recommend. If you like what this show is about, I would recommend going to go check it out. It's an old video, but there's lots of cool info in there, as well as some extra clips from Bart's work, which, like I say, yeah, I think are quite compelling. And also the full podcast is linked below too, which goes for nearly 4 hours. Okay. It goes for nearly 4 hours. We're only going to be looking at about 40 minutes worth of clips here, as well as a few other things that I brought in. And I'm going to start it off with one of my favorite clips, which is actually Bart Sibrel getting punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin. And there's a little bit more context to this in my video linked below. And basically, Bart Sibrel has been going around for a long time trying to prove that the moon landing is fake. And he was doing that by tracking down the Apollo astronauts and asking them to swear on the Bible. And most of the time, they wouldn't. In fact, almost every single time, I think Edgar Mitchell was the only one that did. And even then, he looked kind of shaky when he did do it. But Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face for it. So I think that's a good clip to start with because it's quite funny. And it kind of gives you an idea of who Bart is. Yes, exactly, Nikki. Starting with a bang. Yvonne with $20. Yvonne, thank you very much. Very generous. Says, looking great in Bali. What's that about a party in the rear? Yep, absolutely. Although I would say party at the back. I feel like party at the rear, it just sounds like you're talking about something else. And I want to make that distinction. We're talking about a mullet here. Definitely a party in the back, though, for sure. Thank you very much, Yvonne. All right, here we go. Let's start this with a bang.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
Please?
Why don't you swear on the
Oh.
walked on
Trying to get in the middle of anything,
to get
but
out of here.
This is a hotel.
We'll call
Right,
the police.
You cannot
We pay-
solicit. It doesn't-
Come on
you
in
cannot-
here, we'll call the
you cannot
police.
solicit on
You like
this
that?
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
It doesn't, sir. I don't have nothing to do with this. But
Okay.
you cannot solicit on this property.
We just paid
now.
to rent out the penthouse to shoot up there. So
You can't solicit like this on this property.
keep shooting.
All right. Well, then I'd go through my measures.
Yeah.
You got to keep shooting, man. Okay. Well, you can put it on your shoulder. Don't be shy.
Just come with me, Buzz.
You really like attention, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I
Will you
misrepresented
get
myself.
away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Oof. Damn. That audio kind of went out of sync there towards the end. I don't know if you guys got that on your end as well, but what a right hand from Buzz. Honestly, I don't know how old he was there, but he had a bit of power in that right hand. And funny clip, but you know, a part of me wonders, like, why wouldn't they just? What's the big deal? What is the big deal? If you went to the moon, put your hand in the Bible, say you did it. Why? Obviously, Bart Sibrel is being annoying, right? He's being annoying. There's no doubt about that. He comes across like a very annoying guy. Now, I think he makes some amazing points, but his delivery is extremely annoying. So I understand that. But in the, just to like avoid friction and just get the situation over and done with, just put your hand on the Bible and say you went to the moon. Like, just make him happy. It would take 20 seconds. And then you wouldn't have to potentially get an assault charge. So, it is strange. Like, the reaction seems odd for someone who is telling the truth. But at the same time, I can understand that he's coming across as quite annoying. So let's get into the first clip of the debate here. So this is Charles Duke, and this is basically his little intro in the podcast. We'll let him introduce himself, and we'll hear a little bit about him and his experience with Apollo 10 and 11, and then his mission, which is when he went on the moon, which I believe was 15 or 16, but I'm sure he'll clarify. Here we go.
To start this thing off, I want to basically introduce both you guys. Charlie, you are an Apollo astronaut, one of the last 4 surviving Apollo astronauts, the 10th man to walk on the moon on the Apollo 16 moon landing mission. And Bart, you are the world's leading proponent in the moon landing hoax hypothesis, I'll call it. and this has been your life's work, basically proving that, or trying to make the case that the Apollo moon landing program was a American propaganda campaign during the Cold War, and it was all filmed on a set, and they never actually went to the moon. So does that sum it up pretty well?
Pretty much. Half my life, anyway. The first half, I believed they went to the moon.
So,
You got red pilled.
obviously, like the last time you and I talked, we thought it would be a great idea to have you debate somebody on this. I don't know, have you ever done a debate on this with anybody?
No, to me, that would be like debating if the sky is blue. It's blue, and they did fake the moon landing. I bet my life on it. Now,
A little bit, pull your mic a little closer.
So the people
I love the confidence of him, by the way. He's always been like this, and every time he speaks about it, he's so just like adamant. It's impressive.
normally they propose to debate me are victims of the deception, which I have no interest in beating up someone who's a victim. I said find somebody who's a perpetrator, either one of the astronauts or a NASA administrator, and you did. Here he is.
Here I am.
So Charlie Duke,
Charlie Duke. So this guy you're looking at here walked on the moon, according to him, which is kind of amazing to just like look at him and think this man apparently walked on the moon. It's a strange thing to really think about. Oh, at least I find it kind of strange. But anyway, let's let him go now.
could you please give us a little background in your history and how you got involved in the Apollo program in the beginning?
I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. Went to MIT, got a master's degree, and graduated '64. Went to test pilot school and graduated '65, summer '65. And I'd met some astronauts that had come to MIT. They had the contract to build the Apollo guidance and navigation system, and I was working on that system. And all gung-ho guys, and so I decided to take their advice, go to test pilot school, and maybe have a chance at the space program. A couple of months after I graduated from test pilot school in the summer of '65, NASA had another call for astronauts, and 4 of us at Edwards applied, and we all got accepted. So, and it'll be May or so of 1966, we went to Houston and started working on Apollo.
During Apollo 11, the first on Neil Armstrong's mission to the moon, what was your role in that?
I was at Capcom. I'd done the same thing on Apollo 10, and where they took the lunar module to the moon but weren't going to land. And so that had gone well, and Neil asked me why don't you be Capcom for us? I mean, you got the experience.
Oh, he asked you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And because I wasn't on the crew of any way involved, but he said, would you do that? And I said, sure, it'd be a great honor.
So this guy worked in the mission control section for the very first moon landing. So he was a part of the mission, not as an astronaut, but he was an astronaut in the follow-up missions. Now, I want, just while we're still kind of early in the stream, I want to put a poll up, and I want to just get the general consensus of how people are feeling. So we got a poll going live in the chat now. Did we go to the moon? You can either say yes, no, not at all, or yes, but the footage is fake. Now, I will say, me personally, I've always kind of sat in, for a long time, yes, but the footage is fake. That was kind of where I sat for a long time. Now I'm starting to feel like, no, not at all. But I don't know if I've just black-pilled the shit out of myself in the last year, and I just think the entire reality is a psyop, which it could be. And you can get that on an actual T-shirt at the Polarity merch store, by the way. Link is below.
But what was that like for you when they landed on the moon and you were sitting in that?
It's a great sigh of relief. Everybody, it was tense. You can imagine. And are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? And I'm convinced now that had I called abort, time up, and called an abort, which was based on the fuel reserve in the descent engine, Neil would have said, "Say again, Houston." He's not going to abort. He's going to land at at 20 feet off the moon and he's minimum fuel, and we hit that point, he's not going to abort. He had the final say, so he's going to land.
Now, were you there on the communication with them the moment they landed?
Yes.
And how long were you there? Were you there the whole time, even when they were coming back?
No.
Okay.
That was another. We had, I think, four flight teams working Apollo 11, and I was on Gene Kranz's team, and we had responsibility for landing, and then we stayed around for another hour or so while they safed the spacecraft and got everything.
And how long was it until once he got back to Earth? Do you remember your first conversation with him? How long was it before you talked to him?
By the way, in this podcast interview, I really get the vibe that Danny Jones is a massive skeptic, and I don't believe he thinks we went to the moon at all. And I think he is not passive aggressive isn't the right word, but you can kind of tell by the way he speaks to Charles Duke that he kind of at least suspects that he's talking shit to him. It's kind of funny. And honestly, in the last clip that we're going to look at from this is from mainly Danny. And he just lays out a fantastic reason as to why it's really feels like it's fake. And it's got nothing to do with like the footage or the astronauts or anything like that. We'll get to that.
Well, they had to go into quarantine, and because of moon bugs, we weren't sure about whether we're going to bring back something that's going to wipe out the whole
civilization.
Yeah. So they went into quarantine, and we could talk to them through the window, and but there were no moon bugs, and everything was fine, and so they were, I think, 3 weeks or something like that, and then it got out, and we started having debriefings. But we were debriefing during the time they were in quarantine.
And what was that like? What was his demeanor?
Well, I mean,
what was his attitude? What was he saying? Did anything ring a bell to you? Like,
see what I mean?
Or does anything really?
Is anyone else picking up on that? Like, he kind of just seems not passive aggressive, but almost a bit like patronizing, like a little, like mildly condescending. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading, but I'm definitely getting that vibe.
Like, stick out for you as far as like conversations you had with him afterwards?
Neil Armstrong was Mr. Coolstone. Yeah, he was unflappable, and we landed, and he was following the rules, but we hit minimum fuel on the descent because we had him targeted into the wrong way, and he had to fly horizontally about 4 or 5 miles, and then set down and find a place to land. And I remember calling Apollo 11 30 seconds. I mean, he had 30 seconds to land on the moon, and the next call was going to be abort.
Right.
See what I mean? Like, there's just never really, and you really see this in the video that I linked below, my old video on this, where I went a bit deeper into it. The one thing that Bart does with a lot of these astronauts is he tries to get them to watch. I'm just going to bring this up quickly.
Do you remember the moment?
He tries to get them, he sits down with them and tries to get them to watch a bunch of footage that he has of like footage that he says proves that the moon landing are fake. And apparently like someone gave him this footage where it's like they're trying to pretend that you can see Earth, but in the uncut version that he shows, they zoom out and it's actually just like the exposure looking through like a small porthole on a window. And I don't know, I can't remember it in detail, right? And he tries to sit down with the astronauts and watch it with them. And they all just start getting so fired up and defensive, right? Like they don't want to watch it. They're annoyed. Buzz asks him, where did you get this footage? This is what I don't understand. If I was an astronaut and someone said, can we watch this footage of when you went to the moon? Especially if I'm trying to prove you wrong. Oh, sorry, by the way, I'm going to close off this poll real quick. we have 40% of you guys think, yes, we did go to the moon, but the footage is fake. 39% of you say no, not at all. Wow, that is extremely close. 21% of you guys think we actually did go to the moon. Interesting. I'll re-poll at the end and we'll see if that changed. Now, as I was saying, if I was an astronaut and I completed the greatest achievement of mankind ever, went further than any man had ever gone before, or woman, and someone said, can we sit down and watch a bit of this tape together? I would be like, absolutely, bro. And as that tape is playing, I would be filling in the blanks. I would be reminiscing with pride over this amazing feat. I would be wanting to, almost brag and tell him all the little things that happened off camera that you can't see and what so-and-so was doing and how we got there. You know what I mean? It would be like looking back at your wedding day in 20 years later or something like that. Like there would be so much emotion and pride going through you to rewatch that with someone and help them understand what they're looking at a little bit more. That there is not a shred of that with any of these astronauts. It is like defensive aggression and like, threatening them that he'll sue them and that they shouldn't have a copy of this tape. It's like, bro, what's the problem? You went to the moon, didn't you? What's the problem? It doesn't add up. That's all I'm saying. It really doesn't add up. So Danny really starts to push him a little bit more about the moon itself and his experience on it in this clip. So what I did was I kind of bundled the Charles stuff, and then we're going to get into Bart's points, and then we can kind of discuss it all together at the end and see how people feel.
For the moment you took your first step onto the moon?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did that feel like?
I'm on the moon. I'm on the moon. It's just exciting. And
Just elated.
I'm on the moon. Hey, Ma. I'm on the moon.
With excitement.
Yeah. We were delayed getting out because we were late landing due to the problem we had in the other spacecraft.
How old were you again when you first landed on when you walked on the moon?
36.
You were 36 years old.
One of the youngest guys.
I would imagine it would be overwhelming. The amount of emotions would be.
It was pretty exciting, and we were, just bounding with enthusiasm. And what we were late landing, so we were supposed to. The original plan called us to land and suit up and go outside, but Mission Control canceled that. It said you guys are going to be up too late. You might make a mistake or. Too long, not wake up too late, but you're going to be awake for 20-something hours if we do the sea feed.
So they made you guys go to sleep?
Yeah, took off our suits and went to sleep.
I mean, to say what was it like when you first landed on the moon and be like, I'm on the moon. I don't know. I just feel like that's a very strange response. Like that's a very surface level, I don't know. I feel like I would be able to give a much deeper, like emotional recalling of like what that moment was like. I don't know. I could be being cynical here, but it's also hard to grasp that this sweet, nice 90-year-old man would sit there looking very harmless and be lying to our faces. That's also very hard to grasp, I think. Look at this guy. He doesn't really seem like he's lying. He doesn't look like he's lying. But the things that he says are just kind of like, you're not really, like, you don't sound very convincing. You know what I mean? MK Ultra? Oh, Macca. I think you're onto something. I think you could be onto something, brother.
What were you, is there anything that sort of like blew your previously held conceptions of the moon out of the water when you got there? Like when you actually walked out and stepped on the moon, was it exactly what you expected it to be? Or what about that experience really stood out to you?
Believe me, because I'm old, being old doesn't preclude you from being a bastard. No, you're all absolutely correct, by the way. And I totally agree. But it is hard to just like you know, he ain't 90. Yeah, he is. Yep. Or he's within that age range. Absolutely, he is. He's not 70. Okay, Tankella, do the math, dummy. He went to the moon in the 70s. Okay, settle down, get yourself a tap water. By the way, Taris, my absolute man, has gifted 5 memberships. Bro, thank you very much. Let's get some love in the chat for Taris for always supporting and just being a general goat, and for the 5 new weirdos. And Jared celebrating 6 months as a member. Glad you're home safe, Josh. Welcome back. Thank you very much, brother. It's great to be back.
Well, we were the 5th landing, so we'd heard debrief four previous crews tell us what was it like.
Okay.
So we had a lot of familiarity with it, and we knew we had a flight plan. We knew what we were going to do, and so we just got to work, and it was really exciting being there. And I'm on the moon, you know, and you're thinking those things privately. You're not broadcasting it out, but we
like, what did it feel like to walk on the moon? Do you remember like what? I'm talking about like what did the ground feel like? What?
I'm on the moon. That's how it felt. Yeah, I'm on the moon. This guy's just got a pull string in his back. I'm on the moon.
Don't have any feel. You got a moon boot on, and you got a suit boot on.
Right.
So you just feel the pressure, and it was easy to lose your balance, if you will, at 1/6 gravity. And
did you immediately see the Earth?
No, it was right overhead. So when you look up in Apollo, you're looking at the top of your helmet.
This part I found really interesting because that is a very particular answer. And the way he explains it is like, you know, there's a lot of odd detail in there. I'm curious to know, how do you guys feel about the way he explains this? What do you think?
So we never saw the Earth.
You have to be like,
well, yeah, you could hold on to the spacecraft and lean back, and there it was. It's a half Earth up in the sky, and we had TV, so we had an antenna that like a periscope, and we could point that at the Earth. And when we got it pointed at the Earth, we flipped on the TV, and we had TV that we sent down.
TV on the moon? No, what do you guys think about that? Like, he could have easily said, like, yeah, we could see Earth. Like, if he was talking shit, right? You could just say, yeah, we could see Earth. It was beautiful, right there. But he was like, oh no, it was right up there. And like, if you think about it, when you look at the moon, if you were to go and just land on the moon, and it's like that, and you were standing on it, then it would be up, right? That actually kind of makes sense, at least to me. And you know, I'm not an astronaut, if you didn't know, but it does kind of make logical sense that you would have to look straight up if you were standing on the side that we see. So I don't know. Just seems like a very particular answer. Although, you know, I'm sure these guys have. If it's fake, they're probably well trained with answers and details to make it seem convincing. So I don't know.
And how big? Like, you were standing on the edge of a crater. How big was that crater?
The biggest one we visited was North Ray Crater. It was about, it's been a long time ago, so I'll guess it maybe 300 feet wide and maybe a couple hundred feet deep. Wow. And that was our last EVA. That was our 3rd EVA. The lunar rover that we had was, we were the, second with the lunar rover, and it revolutionized lunar exploration because prior to that, everybody was walking. You know, it's pretty tough walking up there and collecting rocks. So riding a rover was really revolutionary.
How long were you?
We've actually got some footage of the rover. But we're gonna watch some moon footage actually after this that I want to show you guys because it is interesting, very interesting to say the least. Can you please do a Ross gasp in that accent? Susie Sunshine. Nice to see you, Susie. Thank you. When the time is right, yes, I will.
You guys outside
The longest was, if I remember right, it was over 8 hours.
You were walking around on your feet for 8 hours.
Well, no, we were riding
you
a
could sit
car.
in the car. Okay.
And then ride to place, and we'd jump out, and we had a flight plan. Do this, find this rock, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were collecting samples, we were drilling holes, we were digging, shoveling trenches and everything like that.
Was there anything that you did that was a part of a part of the job that you had to do that surprised you? Like in any of your digs or any of your findings, did you see anything that was like shocking or like unexpected?
I don't think in the physical work was anything different, but the experience of being on the moon and the 1/6 gravity, you had to learn how to walk, and get your center of gravity over your feet.
Yeah.
And you couldn't straighten up. I tried to straighten up, jumping one time and straighten up, and I fell over backwards, which was really scary.
They mustn't have had the strings attached to them tight enough. That's why. They would have fixed that quickly.
But that was the end of our stay.
Mm. And do you remember if you could see stars?
You can't.
You can't see any stars?
Not in the daylight, you can't.
And you guys were in the daylight the entire mission, right?
No, only on the moon.
That's what I mean when you asked,
Yeah.
like the entirety of your time spent on the moon was in the daylight, because days there are like 14 days long here on Earth, right?
That's right.
So
I had no idea about that, by the way. I had no idea that days on the moon are 14 days long on Earth. Interesting. And the whole thing, like not being able to see stars while you're on the moon, is strange. It's very strange. Like, I'm not trying to disprove it. I don't know. So I've never been there. But why? Like sometimes, like the moon is visible in our sky during the day. Sometimes even stars can be like slightly visible during the day. The moon has no atmosphere. So the only reason I could assume that they're not visible is because the moon's surface is so reflective that it's like light pollution. I don't know. It's a weird one though. It's a very weird one. Actually, you can't see stars outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Why though? It's because of the reflection of light. So you guys are saying because the moon's surface is so reflective that it's creating light pollution. But the thing is though, there's no atmosphere. Like isn't light pollution only a thing because we have an atmosphere? Like light diffuses through the atmosphere and creates this kind of like hazy mask. If there was no atmosphere for the light to kind of diffuse in, it just wouldn't be a thing. Nobody knows. It's all theory. Yeah, I think you're right, Sphinx. It certainly feels like that. I mean, I admire anyone with confidence on this issue either way, right? For anyone who's like, oh yeah, you can't see the stars because of X, Y, Z. It's like, okay, bro, did you go there and test it? Did you? How did you figure that out? You just read it. You read something that thought, yeah, that sounds right. I'm 100% confident that is the truth. I'm going to repeat it like it is. The radiation on the moon alone would have killed them. I didn't know the moon has radiation. It might, but I know that the Van Allen belt is a big point in how did they get there? How did they get through the Van Allen belt? And I went into that in the video linked below in that older video. Taris, celebrating 3 months as a member, says these are highly trained Air Force pilots. They probably followed orders and didn't display emotions on missions. Would be black and white for them. It's very true. I think guys getting to these kind of high levels may not necessarily be like professionally trained liars, although maybe, but they are probably very good at just repeating what they're meant to say. And just keep like shooting straight, even if what they're saying isn't true, they can just hit you with it because they're well drilled. I think that's the best way to put it. They're well drilled.
what happened when you guys had to come home? What was that like?
Well, we were approaching a time to go, and we tried to talk mission control, and they're letting us stay another 2 hours, but or whatever it was. And they said, "Get inside, guys. It's time to come home." So we got inside, and we got ready to lift off. But the first thing we had to do was pitch out all the backpacks. So we depressurized, opened the door, threw out the backpacks, 2 bags of trash. And
oh no, you littered on the moon?
Yeah, we big litter. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Sorry about that. But we were.
How dare you?
Yeah. And
Kind of weird, littering on the moon. Like, I don't know. I feel I don't want to read into it too much. I'm trying to stay objective. I mean, it's quite clear like where my beliefs lie, but I'm trying to stay objective. But it's just, I don't know. Some of these details are just strange to me.
And then we lifted off and rendezvous.
And when you got back to Earth, you had to go through the same process that Neil went through.
No, we did not have quarantine.
You did not have quarantine.
No, not on the return.
What did you have to go through on the return? Was there any specific protocol you had to follow?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but we had physicals and blood and stuff, blood work and stuff like that.
Were there any psychological evaluations or anything like that, or like talking to somebody about your experience?
Oh, I mean, we had debriefings, but everybody, geologists, other astronauts, mission control, we talked to everybody when we got back.
Someone said Carl Wolf already told us why we never went to the moon. I think that's a fantastic point that should be thrown in with this discussion, right? Carl Wolf spoke at the 2001 Stephen Greer press conference and said that he saw images of structures, big structures on the dark side of the moon. And because he was some kind of like photo repair technician in the Air Force. And he saw this at NASA and was like, cool, I guess we'll hear about this on the news soon. This was in like in the 70s or the 60s. And nothing ever. And conveniently, I believe the old hit by a bus. It was one of them. It was either hit by a bus or hit by a car on his bike. You know, the classic, the old John Mack type operation. You know what I mean? It's crazy, isn't it? How like the amount of people who seem to speak about any of this stuff, they always seem to just meet an unfortunate and untimely end. What a coincidence. Helen, thank you for being a member for 2 months. She says, starting Bali with a banger. Love the fade, Josh. Thank you very much, Helen. Appreciate you and your support. Yeah, a lot of people are saying they like the haircut. This has always been my haircut. It's just been under a hat. It's not new. But thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let's actually look at some of this footage, right? Because it is kind of crazy when you look at it in today's context. And look at this, and how long does this go for? This is 2.5 minutes. This is a little montage, okay? And I think this is the montage. Yeah, anyway, let's just press play and see how we feel about it. Hello?
Down 2.5, picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Fake shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. Down a half. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man,
Look at that. Look at that nice little pan in, that little zoom in there. It's good camera work. It's great camera work from a guy who's in some giant suit. And I would assume, it being the first moon landing, the cameras back then were not small, probably not a GoPro, probably, I would say probably more than 50 times bigger than a GoPro, actually. Think about 50 GoPros stacked up. Honestly, probably more than that. Probably like 70 to 100 times bigger than a GoPro. And he's handling this on the moon in a giant, big-ass suit where he would have no sensation in his fingertips. So if you've ever tried to do anything like meticulous wearing gloves, it's extremely hard because you've got no sense of feel. So you can't quite figure out like what you're touching and where the buttons are, and like, it's not easy. And this guy is, he's got some beautiful shots here. Some cinematic zoom in. I love it.
One diaphragm per man.
This is my favorite though. And isn't it crazy how, like, what are they on the edge of the moon? This is the same joke as in the video that I did earlier in the year, but this is like got the same render distance as old school RuneScape. Okay. They're either on the edge of the moon or they're in a studio.
Tony, this is so great you can't believe it. I believe it, Charlie. It's raining, John. Look at it go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering, it's great. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride.
GoPro footage of the rover. They had a GoPro strapped to the rover. Josh, please don't only look up debunking it. Maybe do at least one of somebody explaining it. So I did that in the video earlier this year, which is linked below. It was a bit of a balanced take. And this video is a little bit more like we're just covering a debate. And this is just footage. So this is just like the objective footage. Like this is not a debate. This is just looking at the footage. And I don't know, for me personally, looking at this, it's kind of crazy that they think this is real. And we apparently went to the moon with a computer that is as powerful as a calculator. And like the way that they did it, I went into more detail about this in the video earlier in the year, but they did it with a translunar injection. Okay. Now I'll try and explain what that is and why they did it, but I explained it better in that video. Elon Musk said that it would take like 10 rockets worth of fuel to make it to the moon today, right? And he said the only way to do that would be to like launch a rocket, already have a rocket in space that it refuels from, and then you would have to send rockets up to refuel the refueling rocket like enough times that it could fill up the actual rocket that was going to the moon. Like, it's just ridiculous. It doesn't really make sense. The way that they apparently did it in the 60s and in the Apollo missions was with a translunar injection. So what that is basically they launched the rocket to dock with something that was in orbit. And this thing that was in orbit essentially aimed at the moon. And obviously this thing in orbit is moving. So it's orbiting. And so is the moon, right? So you've got a moving destination, like a place of point of origin, moving, aiming at a moving target. Okay. Think of an archer on a boat trying to hit a bullseye that is also moving. Okay. That's what they're doing. And they basically had to aim at the moon, get all their trajectories correct, and just send it. So I guess if you missed, you're going to go past the moon. If they launched it too hard, it would crash into the moon. There was all of these different things that they had to get right. And I went into more detail about that in the video. That's not even the craziest part, though. The craziest part is they never even tested the translunar injection with an unmanned vehicle. This, like, if you look it up, the story is they did it perfectly for the first time with a live crew. There was no test. Look it up. That in itself is ridiculous. Why would they never test that? That is just reckless and careless. And, you know, there's just so many things in the moon missions, in NASA and space travel in general, that goes wrong. Rockets blow up. All these different things happen. To do something like that without testing it and get it perfectly correct with no issues the very first time, I'm not buying it, bro. I'm not buying it. Look at this.
Hippity hoppity over here.
Hippity hoppity. Look at, and I don't know, just look at it. It looks like a set. This looks like a set. Where is the, are they on, again, are they on the edge of the moon? Where is the rest of the moon in the background?
Landale. Hippity hopping along.
Hippity hop.
One ignition. Right away, Houston.
Oh, dude,
Vector
this
good.
one.
We're burning
This
flat.
one's a classic.
Looks good.
Isn't that a classic? Do you know what the story is about this?
One.
Apparently, this is how they did this. They had they left a camera on the moon, apparently, and it had this is the actual story, that they had a timed tilt mechanism on this tripod, and that when they took off, one of the astronauts had to press a button, and it had like an automatic tilt to follow them as they took off. That's the actual story that they told people, and that's what apparently they did. Please.
Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good. We're burning flat.
And I mean, God, they timed it well. They almost kept that capsule dead center the entire shot. I mean, this is great camera work. Again, let's just watch it one more time. This is cinema. Literally, this is literally cinema.
One. Ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good. We're burning flat. Roger. Looks good, flight. How's the base shot, flight? Roger. Descending. Stand by for splashdown. Recovery, America, stable water, let cruise go.
Wild, isn't it? All right, we're going to hand it over to Bart Sibrel now. And I guess this will probably introduce him a little bit for anyone who missed the start of the show. And then he'll start laying out his points. And like I said, I will say that Bart, like I said at the very start, he comes across as like generally annoying. So like I can understand why people might not like him, or why Buzz Aldrin wanted to punch him in the face, because he's a little bit obnoxious. But at the same time, he is laying out some pretty, like, you know, I can't really argue with what he's saying. You know what I mean? Here we go.
So your basic story was, when you were a kid, you were obsessed with the moon missions. You said you were asleep when they first landed on the moon, but you were a huge fan of NASA and a big believer in the moon landing. And at one point, something happened, and you did a 180. Out of everything, and I know you cover a lot of ground with your theories, and in your documentaries, you do a very thorough job laying out every single point. But like, to you, what are like the top two or three reasons that you believe that the moon landing was a hoax?
Well, we can get into that, and I have evidence to show on all of those. The first, we have an eyewitness who saw them film Apollo 11 at Cannon Air Force Base. He confessed to it as he was dying. And he also confessed to a homicide.
This is why the headphones help, because you get, sometimes you're not talking into the microphone correctly.
Well,
just make sure you keep it like this far away from your mouth when you're talking.
this far, okay.
Get it nice and close.
So we have an eyewitness and who was fearing the judgment of God as he was dying, and he confessed to a homicide. And if you want, you can bring up that image. It's image D1. This gentleman's name is Cyrus Eugene Akers. he was the chief of security at Cannon Air Force Base, which is the special operations or intelligence headquarters for the Air Force. And as he was dying, in the presence of his son, there's a picture of him.
The studio is ready for Ammon. Dude, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw Danny's new studio too. What did the text say? I can't wait for the next Ammon Hillman podcast with Danny Jones. I'm hooked on that guy at the moment. We need to cover him. We'll cover him soon. I'm late to that party, but I'm all in. I love it.
If you want to look at it.
Okay. This is Cyrus Eugene Akers.
That's right.
How did you discover this guy?
His son contacted me.
Okay.
Based after his father confessed. And the first thing he confessed to was a homicide, that he felt like he needed to confess that he had murdered somebody in the past. And his son found out that he murdered a fellow employee at Cannon Air Force Base. And the military police came in and investigated the homicide. And when they asked him, why did you kill him? He said it was to cover up the moon landing fraud, which they both had eyewitnessed. And he felt that his friend, who thought it was morally wrong, was going to go public with it. And so he murdered him to keep it a secret. If you go to D2, we can watch a 3-minute video of the son and see his testimony about it.
Okay, so this is a deathbed confession that the son told you about.
Correct.
And there was a police investigation into
There
it
was a
after
military police
a
investigation.
military police.
Right.
Okay, is there any hard evidence of this investigation, and what was the outcome of it?
Well, after his father's confession, which was videotaped.
Oh, it was on video.
That's correct. When they went out one day, their house burned down. They believe it was set intentionally by somebody who knew about the confession. After all, they had told the Air Force, military police, that the moon landing was fake. They reported that to their superiors. They found out there was a videotape of the confession, and so they burned their house down. And
Classic.
in fact,
Who burned their house down?
whoever, it was arson, I presume.
When Diddy got busted, they basically just burnt the whole of California down. They weren't taking any risks with that one. Burn that whole fucking state, dude. We can't have shit. We can't have him finding out that it's us. You can't have him finding out that we did it.
CIA or whoever.
And how long after this confession was the house burned down?
Within, I think, a couple of weeks, because they had video of the confession and they had some documentation. In fact, the gentleman's Air Force file has been completely deleted. We used a Freedom of Information Act request. They said there's no Cyrus Eugene Akers. There's never was in the Air Force, and yet I went to the military graveyard, which isn't too far from here, about 50 miles from here, and there he is, his tombstone, United States Air Force.
From here?
Yeah, it's about 50 miles from here.
Wow.
And he's in a military cemetery, and it says United States Air Force, Cyrus Eugene Akers, and that he served in Vietnam and Korea. And his son lived right across from the base. He said he was chief of security there. And so if you play video D2, we can have a video of the son and put it in his own words.
President John.
So this is they only play a 3-minute clip of this confession here. I got the whole thing in my old moon video linked down below. Wessel says, Josh, do you notice some of your videos seem suppressed algorithm-wise? Any patterns there? Honestly, I never really am like YouTube is suppressing my videos. Like maybe, but I don't think so. Honestly, I think that the algorithm is just very particular, and sometimes, actually, often, just because a video has really good, interesting content, if you don't have a thumbnail that seems to like itch the psychological scratch the psychological itch that makes people click, and a headline, a caption that also gels well with it, then people just don't click it. So I use the analogy, like you could sell the best goods in your shop. If the front of your shop looks like a trap house, no one's going to come in. And I actually think that is, if anything in life isn't going well, look for how you can change it. And that's what I do. If one of my videos doesn't do well, I just think I probably had a shit thumbnail or a shit caption. Do better next time. That's how I roll with that. Xeno Scrape. If I was a 33rd Archontic reptile, I'd have 2 teams. One for us to extract artifacts, with another to play Kubrick's tape. Well done, sir. You have won the most schizo comment of the stream award. Thank you very much. And Samurai Birth, you little freak. Thank you for becoming a member. Let's get some love in the chat for Samurai. Here we go. Let's watch this confession here.
In 1968, okay, in Cannon Air Force Base in 1968, he said by the time he got there, that there was already 2 large hangars that were connected. There was hundreds of dump trucks that came in and dumped sand and stone, and cement powder was powdered over the top of all that to make it look like a lunar landscape. They had men that fashioned it into a lunar landscape, he said.
That's it. I mean, look, if you go back to the footage that we just watched earlier, that's exactly what it looked like. It looked like a set. It looked like sand.
Okay, I've never known my dad to lie, so this all took me by surprise. You know, what's that all about? So anyway, he said that in front of the airplane hangars.
Nikki says he's the color of cement. God damn. That is hilariously accurate, Nikki. Well done. Well done.
Was pole framing with large canvas.
He looks like the same color as the moon landing footage that we just looked at.
Tents that was concealing the inside of the staging area. Inside the staging area, on flatbed trucks, was uncrated the lunar lander that was reassembled back inside the hangars. All of the walls were painted flat black, and the ceilings as well.
Sorry, come on. We're trying to be serious here. Come on.
He was sworn to secrecy by the NSA, and they would put him in prison for breaking that oath. And when Dad saw the moon landing on TV, he cried. He said he knew that what he had witnessed on TV was exactly what they recorded in that hangar. There was no reason for them to go flying around and everything. They had detailed high-definition photos of the landing area. There was no reason for them to go flying around to a different landing area that almost exhausted their fuel, except for drama, because everything had gone so smoothly.
Lurch is good.
Nothing, so it had to be something.
If this guy stands up and he's like 6'7", he's literally Lurch.
Anyway, Dad was one of 3 guards that guarded the inside of the front entrance. There was a list of 15 people who could enter. No one else was allowed by order of President Johnson. And here is that list. And I gave it to Bart Sibrel as well. And he checked out a lot of these names, and he says he can verify a lot of these people and what they do. And I come across a couple myself. Anyway, President Johnson, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, Werner von Braun, Robert Emenegger, Gene Kranz, James Webb, Joe Kerwin, Dr. Thomas Paine, Glenn Looney, Dr. Christopher Kraft, Dr. James Van Allen, General Trudeau, Lieutenant Colonel Donald Simon, and Grant Norrie. My dad, he raised me by the book. I know he didn't lie to me. And as I started seeing more and more of what he was telling me was true, I realized my dad wasn't lying.
All right, so this is you would say this is the top piece of evidence that you...
No, it's the most compelling to people because we have a testimony of it. Now, if I may ask...
It is a testimony, but it's not actual hardcore evidence.
I understand. We've got 3.5 hours. He's got 40 minutes head start on me.
Yes, he
does.
And
so I can present my evidence.
Yeah, let him cook. Let him. Bart's cooking. All right, let him cook. Danny, come on. Like I said, that full video is in my original moon landing hoax video, which is linked below if you want to check it out. Plus a whole bunch of other good clips from Bart's work. But let's get into his next clip. So this is where he really starts laying it down, and then we'll follow that with Danny. Actually, no, we'll look at some more moon landing footage after that. Here we go.
If I climbed Mount Everest and was known for climbing Mount Everest and got an award or a medal, and I was hired at companies as their CEO for having climbed Mount Everest, and somebody came along and started saying, you didn't do it. It was filmed in a TV studio. I certainly wouldn't fly and make an airport change and stay overnight in a hotel and go to podcast to defend that I'd climbed Mount Everest. I wouldn't wait.
Lurch and Uncle Fester, this is crazy.
It's my time. So why are you here?
I think that's a great point, though. And it's kind of like what I said at the beginning. Like when he was going around asking people to swear on the Bible, like, bro, just do it. Who cares? Just swear. Like, what is the big deal? And also, this is like the same kind of point that I make often about David Icke, and that, David Icke is banned in countries. Candace Owens is banned in countries. If these people are just talking shit and what they're saying is not true, who cares? What's the danger, right? Why go to the effort? Why bother? When you see the crazy guy on the street with frazzled out hair looking like he just came out of Jumanji screaming about whatever the hell drug-fueled psychotic episode he's having, no one's going to any effort to let people know that his psychotic drug-fueled ramble isn't true. Everyone's just like, that guy's clearly crazy. I'm just going to leave him alone. But there is like this big effort to silence certain people or prove certain people wrong. To me, that's sus. I find that very strange. John Anthony, you legend, John, gifted 10 memberships. John Anthony, you are a goat, sir. Thank you very much. Let's get some love in the chat for John, always supporting the stream, and 10 new weirdos. Guys, there's members-only content you can go and check out. Members-only live streams happen regularly as well. And there's a catalog of members-only videos to go back and check out too. And the members section of our Discord, which is the best place on the internet. And hey, I'm going to play some games. It says Astronaut might have been MK Ultra'd to believe he genuinely went to the moon. I personally don't know what to think if their minds got messed with. No, dude, I think you're absolutely on the money. Obviously, I don't know the extent of MK Ultra, how it works, in terms of the finer details. But, the kind of things that they were doing in this time, and this is what we're going to get to, okay? This is what we're going to get to in the last clip, because Danny Jones actually cooks up a storm with a point about psychological warfare, and that this all happened at the height of when psyops were rampant at this point. So, I really think that could be in the realm of possibility, 100%.
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That I'd climbed Mount Everest. I wouldn't waste my time. So why are you here?
Me?
Yeah.
Wait.
If
I'm
you
not
walked
wasting
on
my
the moon and it's so
Me?
obvious that you walked on the moon,
Yeah.
I wouldn't fly anywhere to debate somebody whether or not I walked on Mount Everest if I did. So why are you here?
I'm here to tell my story. He asked me to come and share my story. Did I walk on the moon? And I did walk on the moon. The evidence is overwhelming that we landed on the moon.
I said I'm on the moon already. Now, to be fair, I will say Danny Jones, I don't know this, but Danny Jones may have paid this guy to come on and do this. Not to like pay him to lie, but to get him in the seat and have the debate. Because in the Ammon Hillman debate with the I can't remember who he is, but with the church guy, the pastor, whatever, he did get paid, I think $5,000 USD to come and do that debate, and he barely debated him. This guy could have been paid to be in that chair too. So let's just be aware of that.
And so I've told my story for the last 50 something years almost, or whatever it is. We landed in 72. So I have been asked to share my experience by reputable people, and so I do that. And I am not lying. I landed on the moon, and the evidence is overwhelming.
Well, actually, the opposite is true. People can say anything. The evidence is not overwhelming.
What is that?
No, it's overwhelming.
Hang on, hold on a second.
We'll
hold
get-
on,
we'll
hold on a
get
second,
into-
Bart.
we'll get
Hold
into
on.
that.
Let's lay out some more of your evidence.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you retired a general, right? Okay. What was your security clearance?
Top secret.
Okay. So when you have a top secret, you're not allowed to tell your wife or your children, right?
What?
Whatever the
What? What are we talking about again?
secrets are. Whatever secrets you have as a top secret clearance, if you told your wife or your children, you would be violating your oath. Is that right?
In the military, that's true, but
Okay.
NASA did not have us swear an oath that we are lying or not lying.
I understand, but the point is, you have top secret clearance, and telling your wife or your children would be violating that oath. So your oath to the corrupt United States federal government includes lying to your wife and to your children. Now, there are 100,000 trials every year in America. 90% of the people are guilty, and yet 100,000 people raise their hand and swear that they're telling the truth. So does every Nazi war criminal. They look like benevolent grandfathers, and yet they go smiling through life and denying to the very end that they committed these crimes, which they did. Now, if you're willing to lie to your wife and to your children, why should we believe you?
Andrew says this is a weak point. Interesting. I actually think it's a decent point. Like, it doesn't necessarily prove anything, and it's not really an argument, but it's like a really good thing that I think should be considered in this debate. And the fact that, you know, these guys, the clearances these guys have, they're legally obliged to lie and hide things from their family. So why would, like, it's public information that they kind of have to lie or that they have to withhold secrets. Like, that is a thing. So it's like there is every chance that they could just be doing that and doing their job right now. And that's why things don't seem to add up, because their points seem weak because they're not really there. And he's doing it because he's just doing his job. I don't know. The dude's 90. Yeah, he's a little bit over 90. And to be honest, I think he sounds great for his age. Like, he sounds pretty with it and coherent for someone his age. And I mean, you know, he sounds a bit slow sometimes, but for his age, I think he's actually doing quite well.
Believe me about what?
Well, you just said you're willing to lie to
That wasn't a good example of it.
your wife and children to keep your oath to the corrupt federal government. So if you're willing to
No,
lie,
I'm not lying to them. I'm not lying to anybody. I'm telling them the truth. I landed on the moon.
Just because somebody has, I don't think it's fair to say just because he has a top secret clearance and he's under an oath to protect government secrets, that doesn't mean that he is inherently a liar.
I understand that.
And he also said
that
that it's-
shows that he is willing to lie to his wife and children. And if he's willing to do that, he's willing to lie to the rest of the world. So that's my point. No Nazi.
Yeah, like I actually think it's a good point, personally. It doesn't prove anything, but it's just a good thing to consider when we listen to this information.
War criminal has ever come forward and turned himself in. And when arrested and interrogated, not a single one confessed, even though they were guilty. I'm just mentioning that. So either the gentleman we saw is lying or you're lying. One of the two. So would a general with top secret clearance be more likely to lie, or would a sergeant on his deathbed who confessed to a homicide be more willing to tell the truth?
Again, pretty interesting. Like, that's it. This guy's a general with a top secret clearance versus who is making points that seem a little bit incoherent, that aren't very convincing or compelling, along with all of the other shit about the moon landing that's just very strange. NASA deleted all the technology that they had to get there, versus a guy on his deathbed admitting to killing someone to cover up the fact that it was a hoax. Who's got more of a motive or reason to tell a lie there? It's a weird one.
I think there's crazy people out there. There's lots of crazy lunatics out there who will say anything and make up stories.
Yeah, James, you motherfucker.
And the same thing is true that
And one of them is sitting across from me.
Well,
I don't think so. I don't necessarily think that. I think that anybody who is in a high level military position that has to protect government secrets is going to protect their oath. It doesn't mean they're a liar. That means that they're protecting national secrets, something they swore to do and devoted their career to. And if they divulge those secrets, they will go to prison for it. And there's been many cases where people have done that, have been sent to prison by the federal government for blowing the whistle on things and following whistleblower protocol. So I don't think we're going to get anywhere by calling people liars. First of all,
Well,
second of all,
I'm not. What I'm saying is either the gentleman we saw who was lying as he's dying, or you're lying. Only one of them is the true.
A lot of people saying that he's like rude and whatever. I kind of get that, but I feel like he's just very blunt with his points. But like everything that he kind of says, I'm like, yeah, he's kind of true. Like he doesn't sugarcoat it, and he's very abrupt. But it's like, yeah, it's fantastic point. To be honest, one of them is lying,
Right?
Okay.
Either that guy's lying while he was dying, confessing to a homicide.
sure. What's your point?
Well, I'm just bringing that to
Okay.
the audience's attention.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, I had a little side note. Who do you think killed JFK?
no.
He's blunt but not rude. No, he's very disrespectful. Yeah, no, I think I agree with Earl. I think he is blunt. I don't necessarily think he's rude or disrespectful, but he is very blunt, for sure.
No
No
idea.
clue.
Huh?
Okay.
I believe. Well, I know what this.
What's your personal opinion?
Oh, he's going full Joe Biden. He's going full Joe Biden right now. Who do you think killed JFK?
My personal opinion is I don't remember Oswald or whatever his name is. I don't remember the name.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Lee Harvey.
The government's
Oswald.
position was that he acted alone and he was the sole shooter of JFK.
Yeah.
That's what you believe. Yeah. Well, 75% of Americans disagree. The gentleman's relative.
Bro was just buffering. Now, look, he is 90. He is 90 to be fair, but also to be like, oh, whatever they said on the news, who was that? Harvey Oswald? Yeah, I think it was him. It's like, okay, well, if you believe the news, then I don't really know how much I can believe you. If you're just happy to go along with whatever the news says, then yeah, I don't know about you, bro.
Disagree. Bobby Kennedy Jr. says he's 100% certain that he was murdered by the CIA because he was going to abolish them. And then a few years later, Robert McNamara, before he died, he was defense secretary during the Vietnam War. He confessed that the whole reason that the war was started, which 90% of the public was against, was they fabricated an attack by the North Vietnamese on an American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin. Even Wikipedia says it was falsified. Now, Congress passed a law called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which led to the deaths of 3 million people, including 58,220 of their own citizens. So if they're willing to kill their own president, willing to kill 58,220 of their own citizens, I don't think they're going to have a problem faking a video image of the moon. In fact, NASA has never kept a schedule in its entire existence, except the most complicated one of all time. Somehow they were ahead of schedule. You see that?
And it went off without a hitch, right? It just went off perfectly. Basically, the only mission to ever do that were the moon landings. And, you know, like he's talking about the Vietnam War. We've spoken about this on the channel before as well. Like, you know, the Vietnam War was, you know, this is around the era that like Michael Aquino who we've also covered on the channel, was doing his thing. And I want to do a deep dive on him soon. But this guy was like the godfather of psychological warfare. Okay. And in Vietnam, they were, broadcasting voices out into like where the Vietnamese were, trying to like masquerading as like their ancestors, speaking in Vietnamese, telling them to stand down from the war, trying to project like visions of ghosts in the sky. Someone was telling me recently that they did something similar in the Philippines as well. Like there's just like this is like the eye of the storm for when the Nazis just came over through paperclip and they were all into this weird like mental warfare stuff as well. It's this was the time where they were experimenting with messing with people's minds. And I think most people agree that like generally from around this era, the West overall has been on like a steady decline. It seemed like the people in charge really don't care about the people of those countries. So are these countries just being like siphoned for money, siphoned for resources, and that the people in these countries don't actually matter? They're kind of just seen as like a replaceable asset or something. That's what it kind of feels like Western society has become, right? And this is where it really kind of kicked off in this era. And I do think it feels like as the Nazis came into America through paperclip, having this almost, this hype of going to the moon begin and all that is like the perfect way to kind of shine the spotlight away from all of that, away from the fact that the people who were the arch nemesis were now running the space programs, probably deeply embedded in parts of science and the government as well. The best way to shine the light away from that and just skyrocket the morale and support of the people would be to go to the moon, have this great moon mission, make America the greatest country in the world. And like this is a psychological manipulation. This is psychological warfare. And I think that this is exactly what Danny lays out perfectly here. Listen to this.
One of the main reasons for me, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of other folks when I say this, is that when it comes to the Apollo missions happened in the middle of the Cold War during the peak of government distrust. That's when we know, according to all the declassified documents by the CIA and the FBI, is that the government was lying and deceiving the public more than ever. I mean, I don't know how much they're doing now, but as far as all the documents that we have, that was the peak. That was when the president of the United States was murdered. That's when we did the Gulf of Tonkin, got into the Vietnam War. The government started doing a secret mind control program with using LSD and other drugs, and that there was the Manson family murders and all of this stuff, right? So when people look at this stuff and they're learning the history of the Cold War, and they see that the most astonishing feat of mankind ever happened right in the middle of all of that stuff, people just, I think they get taken back by it. Like, so the government was lying about all this other stuff, but the one thing they didn't lie about was the most amazing feat of mankind.
That they never did again. That they deleted all the technology to replicate. I know it's hard to swallow. I know it's hard to wrap your head around that this is true. But I think when we remove the emotion, when we strip the emotion, if we pretend that we are an alien from Zeta Reticuli that just landed on Earth and have no emotional attachment to any of this and just had all of these facts laid out to us, we would be like, this is clearly a fucking lie.
Does that make sense to you? Does that sort of logic, does that make sense? Why people would question that?
Question Apollo?
Yeah.
Where am I again? Sorry. I know he's old. I know he's old, but it is funny.
Yes, just based on all of the other strategic deception that was happening within the government, like MK Ultra, mind control experiments that were going on, the Vietnam War, the assassination of President Kennedy, the Gulf of Tonkin, all of that stuff. It was right in the middle of all of that, the Bay of Pigs, right? There was Operation Northwoods that got declassified, where the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to fly an airplane with nobody in it as a drone and blow it up as a pretext to invade Cuba.
Killing Americans. They were willing to kill Americans to fake an attack on Cuba.
This is real declassified stuff that's come out in the federal government with the Warren Commission and all of this stuff. So
the same people who would later approve the Apollo program.
So that's
you're saying we never landed on the moon?
Well, no. What the question is?
You didn't know that before you got here?
No,
Charlie,
You're a really good actor.
I really didn't know that.
Did you ever win the Academy Award for Best Actor?
I really
you were
didn't know
cheated.
that you believe that we lied on 6 missions that landed on the moon.
Charlie, does it make?
Kat said, even if they didn't go to the moon, it's not the astronauts' fault, and I do agree with that. Like, if this guy is bullshitting us, I don't necessarily blame him. I feel like some people get caught up in things, or he even actually does believe what he's saying, and he's a victim of MK Ultra. I'm not saying that's what it is, but to me, this guy being a victim of MK Ultra and just speaking what he thinks he believes is actually more likely than we actually went to the moon. And that's purely just based on, like, why haven't we gone back? The time that all of this happened that we just talked about, the literal prime era of psychological operations and warfare. NASA is just randomly deleting all the technology to do the greatest achievement of mankind. Like, all of these things just make me think that it is far more likely that this guy is an MK Ultra victim or something like that than us actually going to the moon. Like, just based on those things, that feels more likely.
On the moon.
Charlie, does it make sense to you?
Right.
Why?
That's how arrogant the federal government is. Now, if I may have my 40 minutes to answer your question.
Hold on one second. I want to make sure this lands with him. Does it make sense why people would question that based on all of the other bullshit and lying that was going on that we know was actually all the other stuff that we know for a fact was deception?
To me, Apollo was real.
To you, but I'm saying
no. Wait a minute.
Well, that's because you're an MK Ultra victim, sir. I'm sorry to tell you. To me, it was real. Yep, that's what happens when you get psychologically manipulated. I'm sorry to tell you.
The United States, there were 400,000 people working on Apollo.
Right.
Well, let me.
Just a minute. Let me finish.
You had 40 minutes already. I've only had 10.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Forgive me.
That's one of the.
Aw, he's polite.
Must be real because of 400,000. And of course, every year that number increases. Mm-hmm. There are 400,000 tellers at Bank of America. But do you really think what the teller knows and what the CEO knows about corruption in the bank are identical? I interviewed Eugene Krantz. He told me that someone in the command center at the console can tell no difference whatsoever between a simulation and an actual flight. Do we really think the CIA is so stupid to tell the guy making the glove or the door or the boot, hey, we're really not going to the moon, be sure not to tell anybody? And that's why they had you astronauts at the command center to cover the mistakes about faking it. Once the rocket went up, there's only 3 eyewitnesses to the mission and no independent press coverage. So if you add people who delivered food and made paper clips and did the printing and the contractors and all their secretaries and food vendors, you could probably pad 400,000. But the atomic bomb involved 129,500 people and only 8 people knew what they were building. So if someone in the command center cannot tell the difference between a real flight and a simulated flight, how can the public watching it from their living room or people years later? So that argument is flat.
I think that's important to highlight as well, because I totally agree with this. This isn't just like if this is a psyop, if this is a hoax, this isn't like everyone at NASA is trying to convince the public. It is that somewhere at the very, very top, this has been a hoax that was played on people in the mission control room who actually also thought they were watching something real and that they were actually going to the moon. Because getting all of those people on board to actually believe that they went to the moon and then relay this information and this message as if it were real would be the best way to like reinforce and support this psyop, right? Like he said, only 8 people knew what they were building with the atomic bomb. There would be no reason to bring in all of these people in the mission control room and tell them that it's not actually happening. They would be part of it. And that list that he read out earlier that had like James Webb and, Dr. Van Allen and all those people, there was like 8 or 10 people. They are the 8 or 10 people who were apparently in the studio that guy's dad was a bodyguard at and had to delete someone to continue the cover up. And that's what he was talking about in his deathbed confession, that list of people were the only people that were allowed into the studio. Therefore, they are the only ones who would have known, just like the 8 people who were the only ones who knew they were building an atomic bomb. It's the same kind of setup.
It doesn't go anywhere. And neither does the argument that the Russians would have spilled the beans, because I know somebody who works in the command center of the Chinese Space Agency. He said everybody there knows that the moon missions are fake and they're blackmailing NASA because Congress passed a law forbidding space technology to be sold to China, and they're receiving it anyway by blackmail. If I had a picture of a world leader with a prostitute, I could upload it to the internet, and now it's worth nothing. Or I could blackmail them year after year after year. And that's what the Soviet Union is doing. Putin knows. He wasn't surprised to find out that the moon missions are fake, and neither is
What he's talking about there is, and there's a clip, again, in my old video that is linked below. I show the clip of Putin seeing an AI image analysis done by Google, by the way, that is saying that it believes that the moon landing images are fake. And you see Putin's reaction, and he's just like not surprised. And he's just kind of like, Like, it does kind of look like he's disinterested and that it's like not new information to him. And it does make a lot of sense in what he's saying here about the blackmail. I'm going to let this clip continue playing. I'm just going to run to the bathroom.
China. So that doesn't fly either. We're being blackmailed, which is another reason for the truth to come out. Now, I also interviewed Betty Grissom, the widow of the man who was going to be the first man to walk on the moon, who was a whistleblower at NASA to such a degree that he received Secret Service protection the weeks up to his death. I interviewed her for 4 hours. I interviewed her son for 3 hours, who's a 747 pilot. They say with 100% certainty that the man who was going to be the first man to walk on the moon was murdered by the CIA. And if you go to D3, it's a short clip. You can see Scott Grissom say that out of his own mouth. So why is the CIA killing Apollo astronauts who are whistleblowers? What a coincidence, right? Go ahead and play that clip. It's D3.
I think it was intentionally sabotaged by someone. It's been a question in my mind, what was found in the accident investigation and how was that handled? Was the CIA involved or whoever? But it was done intentionally.
So
do you know the story of Gus? I'm sure you know the story of the Gus. Gus Grissom was Apollo 1, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And according to his son and widow, he was murdered by the CIA. She told me that on January 26, 1967, he telephoned her from NASA and said, "Hon, for some strange reason, the CIA is all over the launch pad today. I've never seen them here before. For some reason, they showed up today."
Did you ever see the CIA?
The very next day, he's dead by a, quote, accident. One of his last words were, "If we can't talk between two buildings, how are we going to go to the moon?" They couldn't get a wired intercom to work between two buildings. And Neil Armstrong's supposed to pick up the first moon rock. He rehearsed it 6 weeks beforehand, and the stick to pick up the rock falls apart.
Oh, I'm muted. Okay, that's okay. One thing I one thing I feel like people are forgetting is that technology at this point in time in the 60s, I know a lot of people weren't actually alive back then, but if you were, you're probably very young. Technology was so crude and primitive, right? And I think we kind of forget just how bad it was. And then to think that we were able to go to the moon with that technology is, and not just that, but how far we've come since then, and we haven't replicated it, not even once. These are the things that I really find hard to wrap my head around personally.
And the lunar lander crashed weeks beforehand. If they can't get a stick with a bag on the end of it to stay together, if they can't get an intercom to work between two buildings, how are they going to go to the moon? The Soviets launched the first satellite, the first animal, the first man, the first woman, the first spacewalk, the first crew of 3, the first of 2 spacecrafts altogether. They spent 5 time man hours in space, and they never went to the moon. China, the most industrialized nation on Earth, says with 50 years better technology, it's going to take at least 15 years to go to the moon. And yet somehow they did it in 8 years with 1960s technology. Now, if you play clip 4, this is when my film, Astronauts Gone Wild, the link will be in the description of your video, to Sibrel.com. We interviewed Ed Mitchell and showed him the footage, which is one of the proofs that we'll look at. Footage we uncovered that says, do not show to the public at the beginning of the reel, and they're faking being halfway to the moon. They can't leave Earth orbit. And when he was shown that, he turned beet red. He started cursing. He literally kicked me from behind. And in the commotion, we left a wireless microphone on him. And in the commotion, my cameraman forgot to hit stop record. And you can play back that clip. It's about 5 seconds long. They're talking about calling the CIA to have me killed.
Let's see it.
And who killed?
Me.
You want to call the CIA? Have them whacked?
So that clip there with like zero context isn't that interesting. But again, if you watch my old video, which you should do after the stream, I show that whole clip, and with the context, it is actually kind of wild. And yeah, the astronaut does actually like literally kick him up the ass and kicks him out of the house, and then they leave the microphone on him because he just gets kicked out in this like weird hustle. And yeah, he says, should we get him whacked by the CIA? It's interesting, right? I think just based on what we can see, if we strip away the emotion, for me personally, I just can't help but think at the very least something isn't right. The truth is being redacted for some reason. Why that is, I don't know. Maybe Carl Wolf was right, and that there was megalithic structures on the moon and we were never allowed to go there anyway. And the entire thing was just a psyop to win over the support of a nation and raise the morale and take the spotlight away from the fact that the entire nation, government, and science department has been infiltrated by Nazis. The timelines line up. Werner von Braun was literally the architect of the moon mission. Who knows? Who actually knows? And there you go, right? Werner von Braun was like in charge of the moon mission. Okay, that's a Nazi scientist, father of the V2 rocket. I'm sure that guy wouldn't have had any qualms with tricking all the people at NASA into thinking they were watching a real life moon landing and they were actually watching a simulation. Just saying. I could be wrong. Make up your own minds, but just saying. Now, look, we'll just quickly watch this clip here. This only goes for 2 minutes. This is the restored Apollo 11 moonwalk footage. It only goes for a couple of minutes. And yes, this is restored.
At the foot of the ladder, the lamb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. Although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. And then a long one. Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down about the 4th rung up. There you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. For those who haven't read the plaque, we'll read the plaque that's on the front landing gear of this LEM. There's 2 hemispheres, one showing each of the 2 hemispheres of Earth. Underneath it says, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace." I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene. That's all right, I don't mind a bit. How is the quality?
The whole flag waving thing, I remember being a kid and seeing something about like, why is the flag waving? And that was kind of the moment, you know what? That might have set me on my path. That might have set me on the path to be here today and think that our entire reality is a psyop. Because when they said that, I remember it and I was just like, yeah, why the fuck is the flag waving? And here we are 20 years later.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is. Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent? Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the...
Wild, isn't it? Again, go check out my full video that I did earlier in the year. It's an old one. It'll be some vintage Polarity material there. But all the stuff that Bart's talking about, like the clips of them faking being halfway to the moon, the reactions of the astronauts, the full clip of him getting kicked out and threatened to be killed by the CIA, all of that stuff is in there. It's a pretty comprehensive overview of all of this stuff. And in the description to that, there should be links to all of Bart's work as well, and all the the full videos where I found all of that stuff. Now, Drucifer says, I got 5 inches of snow this morning and our boy is in Bali. Congrats on the safe arrival, my dude. My man, I'm glad you didn't get 5 inches of something else. Thank you very much, brother. Dan Garden says, and I'm glad Dan's been found, by the way. His mum was very worried about him at the front of the supermarket. Glad you're safe and sound, Dan. He says, yes, I believe his perception was manipulated to believe he visited the moon. To be honest, I think, like as tinfoil hat as it is to say, I think that is like the most logical answer that makes the most sense given everything that we know. Rain, my man, says the moon landing footage is obviously Hollywood, but the question is why? It's most likely because the aliens were in the original footage. It's a cover-up of a cover-up of a cover-up. Interesting, Rain. You know, you could be right. I think my feeling is the fact that it was a psychological operation on the public and also on Russia in the Cold War. That's what I think, to try and puff their chest out while simultaneously raising the morale and gaining the support of a nation. That's my opinion. But as always, make up your own mind, use discernment, don't just listen to me. Xenoscrape, if the billionaires wouldn't want to look down at humanity from the safety of a giant space station, tells me they still can't break through the dome, ergo operations fishbowl. Yep. You are holding on to your title, sir, of the most schizo comment of the stream. I like it though, but when you write in capitals like that, you are holding on to that title firmly. I respect it. I respect it. Thank you very much. And 8U says, Danny with an Aphex Twin shirt. Good to see you up and running, JWoww. Thank you very much, bro. It is good to be back. Like I said, feels weird when I don't stream for a while, but we are here in the new pad in Bali, and this stream has gone well. We didn't have any internet issues, which is great. So I think the streams will be up and running like always. And 420 Breezy says, good morning, y'all. We should all believe the government. They clearly care for us. Of course, bro. And that's just evident when we look around, right? It's quite clear that the people making decisions in the world actually care about your health and well-being, obviously. In terms of Bali, follow my other channel. It's linked below, Josh Stradamus. It's where I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date with all the things that I'm up to over here and coming tomorrow on that. And hopefully more coming very, very soon as well. But that pretty much wraps up this stream. And I thought that was a really fun one. I love talking about the moon. And I just think it's such an interesting story because it really does feel like it was the OG PSYOP. This is where it all kind of began. So, guys, Rambro has gifted a membership. Rambro, my brother, thank you very much, bro. Let's get some love in the chat for Rambro and our new weirdo. And it does seem like I did jinx it right then. But I think we're back. I think we are back. That's not bad. We nearly did 2 hours without a single hitch, and there we go right at the end. Guys, thank you for hanging out today. We are back. We're rolling again, and I appreciate celebrate our first stream back. Go and get yourself some merch to support the stream. The link is below. We've got all kinds of stuff, including the Reality is a PSYOP t-shirt. And you can support me down there as well by becoming a member and a whole bunch of other ways. But as always, I appreciate you just being here and watching. So until next time, which will probably be very soon, be good, be kind, get outside, touch some grass, and I will see you all in the next video or live stream. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Eventually, people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.